So for us, we really look at, the situation being dynamic, most importantly, ongoing. To move from the era of missing and unsolved to something more constructive as ongoing, and to not be running billboards along, the highway that say missing, call this number, call that number, call this number, has really been inspiring to a lot of folks. We've had people reach out from other cases who see the energy, who see the momentum, and your heart really goes out to them, because we're so blessed to have folks like Chris Lambert, who've brought 10 million plus people to the vignettes of 25 years. People like Chris Lambert that have brought 10 million folks to our story of 25 years. And to put that in perspective, really, that's 9,100 plus days. That's 24 plus missed anniversaries, 24 plus missed birthdays. It is a big, big period of time. I mean, imagine sailing on a ship and not seeing land for 9,000 sunrises.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, land is out there. It's awfully exciting. But to constructively, back in 2017, say, we're almost 20 years in. How are we going to make better light of the situation? And this is pre-podcast. How are we going to draw renewed positive energy to this case? And for us, it was really devising the Kristin Smart Scholarship and focusing in on three pillars. And those pillars being architecture. Kristin was really into outdoor design. Kristin was really into kind of like a pre-Starbucks, designing outdoor spaces for people to meet. And that love was largely derived from even living overseas prior to her freshman year at Cal Poly. So she had lived in Venezuela. She had the summer before over there in Oahu. And you take away from those experiences. And for her takeaway was she wanted to pursue architecture. For us in this scholarship, it was going one step further and saying we want to enable women that look at international studies as a pursuit, educational pursuit. And we also wanted to look at getting more representation of young women at the table of law enforcement and forensic science. So in short, being able to put folks at the table that want to pursue, where Kristin was in architecture, want to pursue international studies, and want to pursue a seat at the table with the law enforcement and or forensic science, that being an area critically underrepresented and most poignantly shown with my mom going time after time, along with my dad, to sit at the table of law enforcement and to see end-to-end no women, end-to-end no detectives. It's a really cool thing to be able to change moving forward, understanding you can't change the past. In other words, being constructive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been such a constructive opportunity for the family. And the outpouring of support has really allowed us to put more scholarships in the hands of young women. The outpouring of support has allowed us to really affirm the legacy that Kristin was destined for, that we otherwise wouldn't be able to do on our own. And in partnerships with like the Bank of Stockton, with the Jeffrey Scott Advertising Agency out of Fresno, heck, even partnerships right now in our fundraising campaign up and down Northern California, we've partnered with every radio station. We've got a season-long partnership with the Fresno Grizzlies. We've got billboards up and down the highway. We've got, online ads. It's a really cool thing to be positioning ourselves for the future, knowing it's been so long. We can't control much other than the scholarship, but if we're able to expand it to where it's something of the Central Valley, you're able to impact more women. You're able to create a positive future and positive change for other young women to pursue their dreams, their aspirations. And we couldn't ask for anything more.
This is a kind of a loaded question, but, what has this been like for you personally to go through this whole ordeal with your sister missing, and then now, what happened to her, and then finally these arrests?
It's really difficult to put to words, as one might imagine, the emotion that in essence is bound up, right? For 25 years. I mean, 2.5 decades, 9,000 plus days. To finally get the phone call, to finally see with your own eyes, action happening, right? True, tangible action. is nothing short than a blessing. With so many false starts, it's, you try not to get your hopes too high. So for us as a family, we've really tried to pour our energy, our emotional energy into the scholarship to be able to empower other young women. That's something we can control. As to what plays out in the courts, plays out in the courts. The best way to put it really is a sense of relief, but an understanding, a foundational understanding. This is simply the second phase. But now that we've moved to ongoing, moving away from the era of missing, call a phone number, do this, do that, grasping, to move away from that has been really nice.
What do you want to see happen to these people if there is conviction that goes through and they're found guilty?
It's a great question. So where the family is, we're not one to, sit too much on that question. It's out of our hands at this point. What's going to play out, it's going to play out. For us, it's really to make the constructive moment that it is, to pour the emotional energy into the Kristin Smart Scholarship. It's to empower other young ladies. We've waited 25 years. It's now looking like it could play out in court, and that's great. But again, it's putting the control where it should be, which is to the positive, often untold story, the Kristin Smart Scholarship.
And shining light on her life with the scholarship, do you believe that helped to keep her story more in the media, and kept just the public aware of, hey, this is still ongoing, and helped to lead to these arrests?
It gives me the chills to simply reflect upon, kind of, as I would say, the lighting of stars. Billboards, being what they are, some considered an old school advertising medium. Frankly, the billboard that stood for 20 plus years in front of James R. Murphy Law Office in Arroyo Grande was the trigger, the aha moment for that young kid from Orchid, California. And for those not familiar with Orchid, down near Santa Maria, him driving by that, raising that question, that's what brought Chris Lambert to the forefront. Wasn't a big, glorious highway panel, wasn't, seeing some splashy story online. It was simply resolutely seeing that banner, missing. It stuck with him. And that became the impetus for Chris Lambert to really get behind the family and develop, arguably what's become the most watched podcast, the most listened to podcast in the world the last few weeks. And there's no words to put to it. I mean, a pure stroke of luck. But to have a business, a small business at that, for 25 years, have a panel up, simple 4x8 panel, to be the impetus for the podcast. I only wish everyone else would have a podcast for their missing family member. But you're talking a lot of stuff, a lot of emotion, all tied up into, some of these things. And sometimes it's throwing stuff against the wall until something sticks. By some blessing, the panel in front of the Arroyo Grande James R. Murphy Law Office, it stuck. It became the impetus for the Chris Lambert Your Own Backyard podcast. And here we are today.
Yeah, and then when you think about it, that it's pretty incredible that, what are the odds that someone would drive by and just like, hey, and then it led to a podcast that just skyrocketed in listeners that led to these arrests. It's the odds of that are just almost unbelievable, right?
No, and that's just it. So we've done what we can to keep it out there with billboards and the news and newspaper articles, and you don't know what's going to stick. But it happened to be a simple 4x8 sign in Arroyo Grande that, he drove by often and saw. And there's been a lot of, unfortunately, people named Kristin that have gone missing, but it simply raises the question, the last name Smart. Wasn't she found? And it was no. And a bit of research, in essence led to a 8 to 10 inch binder, as thick as the US budget, that became the storyline. The vignettes of my life played out, and my younger sister and the family, to a global audience. We've got, folks as far away as New Zealand, China, and Russia visiting the website monthly. It's no longer a grassroots thing. It's a global village of supporters due in large part to the Chris Lambert Your Own Backyard podcast.
Finally, what do you want people to remember about Kristin? Like, what was it like for you, each day, having a sister like her around?
When the family, thinks about what best typified Kristin, it's often represented annually in the form of those that are awarded the Kristin Smart Scholarship. And recently, having announced the 2021 recipients, when you look at Kaylee, when you look at Madeline, when you look at Caroline, and even Annie, it's one of those things, the smile of these young ladies, the joy, the aptitude, all being 4.2, 4.3 plus GPA, some as high as 4.6 GPA. They were scholars, in their own right, in their time in high school, much as Kristin was. And they, are hoping to pursue some of the same dreams and career interests that Kristin had. We've got a talented group that's looking to pursue, forensic science, a law focus, others that are looking at attending Yale. And the leading thing to me that's really cool is being able to find these folks that are pursuing architecture. That's something that always brings me a lot of joy annually in taking a look at the innumerable scholarship folks that send in their packets. I think this year we had over 150 people apply, and we were able to afford 4 young ladies scholarships in Kristin's name. Does it bring back Kristin's smile? No. Does it bring back Kristin's laughter? No. But does it bring joy and life and charisma to these young ladies that were awarded scholarships in Kristin's name? Absolutely. And that brings the family the utmost joy. Can't change the past, but we can change the future for some of these young, talented ladies.
What is it with all these recipients that you see in Kristin?
Leadership, a drive to participate fully in life, that being athletics, that being, professional endeavors. And Kristin had such a knack for wanting to get out there and just live. Really live. Mokalia in Oahu, where she spent her last summer, brought her so much joy to sit in that lifeguard tower and stare at the ocean every day. What high school senior wouldn't want to do that, before their freshman year in college? The ability to see the hope, joy, and brightness of the future in these young ladies is the same joy, hope, and bright future that Kristin saw for herself. She unfortunately just wasn't given that opportunity. But through the annual gift of scholarship, the Kristin Smart Scholarship has been able to bring that hope, bring that joy, and bring that bright future to other young women. And that's where we are so excited with, the news media to get that story out there, with the hope that we can expand it to more young women, to watch them live, watch them pursue their dreams and their ambitions, all in Kristin's name.
Yeah, and just what I keep saying, one final question. Architecture, what was it about architecture that she was attracted to?
Yeah, so Kristin was really into outdoor design. That's something that she had always seen a love for in international travel. As a family, we spent a lot of time growing up traveling overseas. We spent a lot of time traveling around the country. But as is the nature of a competitive swimming family, you do a lot of travel. Much as softball or baseball, you do a lot of travel. That was where Kristin really found a lot of joy in wanting to design outdoor spaces. She was almost coffee shop outdoor space where people could gather and meet. People could gather and have a lot of fun together. So she was ahead of her time, was destined for great things. And, who knows? She might have been a big part of one of these big chains.
Yeah.
It unfortunately was not a reality for her, but if we can make it a reality for some other young women, that's the greatest gift. And for us, it's the gift of scholarship annually that has brought joy back to the family, where we've had 9,000 plus days of waiting, wondering.